I want to get into the perceived tensions between Africans and African Americans, especially for those that have made the transition. A lot of times, everyone thinks coming to Africa, it's a utopia. They think that it's a kumbaya moment and all of that. Of course, we know what's out there online, but I want to speak to that.
I have quite an interesting story because obviously my mom's white, my dad's black. I'm Ghanaian. One of the things that is, I left Ghana when I was 18, right? So I grew up in Ghana, very multicultural, wasn't ever really defined by the color of my skin. I lived in a household with both cultures. My mom is Jewish as well. So it was and my dad is Ghan. So this is a very multicultural household and then very multicultural school. And so I didn't really ever think about it in that dynamic or define myself. It was very much defined as mixed race. Like I have multiple cultures. So when I left Ghana and I was 18, I went to the UK, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, you're black. And I was like, I don't know what that is. Like my mom is white, my dad is black. That's how I identify myself. But I'm from Ghanaian and I'm also British. So I equally have representation. So you live in this sort of duality constantly where you're constantly defining yourself. And I say that because I think one of the tensions that I sort of have noticed as a Ghanaian when I'm in Ghana is that when diaspora are returning, there's sort of an immediate sort of expectation to be immediately accepted. And sometimes you are, and sometimes you aren't. I still have to justify myself almost every single day that I'm Ghanaian, right? It's a question that is constantly posed to me because my hair is different. My skin color is different. I look different. So it's the reason why when I got married, I didn't change my surname. My surname was Kwakupo. It's a Ghan name, right? People can identify that as Ghanaian. And so one of the tensions and one of the things for me is, don't always expect that you're going to just immediately be accepted. You are going to feel more comfortable, but people in Ghana and how they understand you is going to be very different. And so being aware of that kind of cultural difference of like what we get taught in school, we didn't get taught the history, we don't have the full history of Ghana and 400 years, like slave trade. We don't have that in school. So
maybe in school in Ghana in particular.
Yeah, okay. Like you don't have that depth of understanding. I think sometimes there's an assumption that we have and we understand maybe some of the dynamics and the changes. So I think those are some of the things that cause some of those tensions is the expectations. So when they come back and they're called Obroni, for example, they're super upset. And of course you would be. I grew up with it all the time. So I'm like, it's just being called different.
Yeah.
It's not racist. It's a ignorance on a level, right? It's you're different.
Well, it's interesting you say that it's not racist because I think that someone might say that racism is ignorance or based on ignorance.
Yeah.
And so
I think it's the intention is what I mean. Yeah. The intention behind it. And don't get me wrong, there's circumstances where it is to exclude you.
Yeah.
100%.
Right.
But there's also circumstances where it comes also with privilege. Like I'm also very aware of the privilege it affords you in certain circumstances. So I think it's just being hyper aware. Like for me, it's just when you're coming into the dynamic, you're coming into the culture, you're coming to a new country, like you would go to someone's house, you don't assume you kind of have to be very. I think that's
interesting. I'm going to come a second, but I'll also say that the part of why people in the West may feel like they should be accepted is they're being invited. And so when you get invited somewhere, when I show up, I want you to accept me because you invited me to come here.
That's right.
And so there's some nuance there where you, because of your particular story, that makes sense. And if I'm showing up post 2019, I expect whatever the reality is, it's fair to expect to be accepted when I show up.
I don't think the story that she shared, right? I think there's a perception that when you're considered a Obroni or the word is used, it's because of your...
For the record, some of that means, by the way.
Obroni is basically, some say white man, but foreigner.
Foreigner, okay.
Foreigner, right? And the reason I say that is, if you go to the GOC office, if you go to the ministry, and you say my name, you know what they say? Oh, Obroni proper.
Obroni,
And I'm 100% Ghanaian.
Yeah.
I'm saying, but they call me Obroni proper, right? Because they be like, because of the way I speak. They're like, man, your English is proper. So you're Obroni proper, right? Even as many designs that we do, if you go to the sports sector and you mention my name, they'll be like, oh, American man, American designer. I'm Kwabna Asaba. My full name is as Ashanti as you can get. I don't have a foreign name. I don't have a Christian name. I don't have nothing. Kwabna Opoku Asamoah. You can't get as Ashanti as that. And they still call me Obroni. You know what I'm saying? So you have to look at it as it's not a physical differential. It's a differential because of the cultural differential. And if you carry that culture that is outside of here, you'll be labeled with that. And it just mean, like she said, it's a stigma of difference.
Let me add something to that, though, Quab. It's important because I think people coming from the West to Africa need to know you show up as American. You're not showing up as Black. You're not showing up as anything other than American. And with America comes opportunity.
Yep.
Period. So you look like, I don't care what your status is stateside, you show up like you got the check. Everybody needs to understand that. Let's be clear.
That's a good point, though, because with the check comes being targeted.
Oh,
Exactly.
you're absolutely
Dollar sign.
targeted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, though, just because the government has invited,
Yeah.
right? When the government did Year of Return, there was not, and you can probably expand more, but like in my industry, I'm in the events industry, I didn't feel like they really engaged the Ghanaian population behind the
Sure.
whole campaign.
Sure.
So half the Ghanaians in Cape Coast, what do they know about Year of Return, right? So yeah, the government is inviting you, and that's great, but then the person you're going to engage with, the
Yeah.
kid by the street, he doesn't know, right?
Yeah, and that's a valid point. But I would still say no. I would still say that the person on the other side is less involved in that process of the person on the street knowing or not knowing. And so all I'm saying is that the expectation of being welcome is a valid one, whether or not when you show up, it's actually what you experience, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Diallo.
Well, not, you know, so I'm from Northwest DC. I got to get an invitation to go to Southeast DC, right? I ain't talking about to Africa. I got to get an invitation across the Frederick Douglass Bridge before I go to 18th and D. I'm not talking about a whole nother country. I need to be welcomed 30 minutes from my house where I'm from in DC, right? My point is the conflict between us, Africans, African Americans, South Side, Uptown, East Side, West Side, is the same. It's territorial. It's ignorance because we don't know each other. And we've been burnt enough where it's very difficult to be vulnerable. You got to protect yourself, right? So when I first started coming to Ghana in the early 90s, it was everybody I met was, what's up, my nigga? Because what they saw on TV. We got to educate each other. And I'm like, yo, bro, I'm not your nigga because you don't know me like that. Where I'm from, niggas die for less. So let me educate you so that every Black person you see, you don't say, what's up, my nigga, Tupac or Jordan or whatever you saw on TV, right? So it's an education, and honestly, it's something that should be expected, I feel like. But I'm steeped in...
What should be expected?
Well, it should be expected that there should be some differences just based on the history and the impact of the interruption of our history of colonization. If you studied a little bit, you shouldn't expect it to be peachy key. You shouldn't expect it to be smooth because of how much. Like, I grew up in a Pan-African household, Black American, but I grew up like an African booty scratcher. My name is Diallo, my born name, Diallo Sumbri. I was an African kid. Nobody knew that I wasn't born in Africa, or my mom made me wear dashiki in 5th grade to an all-white school. So I got picked on like maybe Osei or Quab or somebody who was born in Africa who went to the U.S. because kids didn't know. So you grew up with this thing, and then you go to college, and then it's like, oh, somebody said they don't like us, and then we just really forgotten that they and us are the same people. But it's really no difference in my mind than the Uptown cats who got to leave the go-go early on the South Side because we don't know each other. So I just think that is not a big difference when you look at, if you went to a HBCU, there's a DC wall, there's a South Side crew. Everywhere Black people go, we find these pockets of ourselves where we associate, and that same perceived conflict is here. So it's just a different crew, it feel like.